Welcome to another amazing episode of Making New Possible. My name is Angela Damiani, and I am the CEO of Milwaukee. I have a really fun guest today. I have the CEO of Marcus Corporation, Greg Marcus, on to talk about all things movie theaters, but actually we get into in-person experience and what it means to be a good steward as a predominant business leader, and the responsibility you have then to impact the culture and the social life of a city. So let's get into it today. Thank you so much for being on the program. Welcome, Greg.
Hey, Angela. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing? Thank you for joining Making New Possible.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Well, I sort of said in our preamble a little bit, obviously, maybe you could start with like a broader overview of what Marcus Corporation is, but I thought I'd love to sort of drill down a little bit into your thoughts on the theater part of your business after you do that.
I am the movie guy, so yeah. Well, it's the Marcus Corporation. We actually have a number of operating businesses where but the Marcus Corporation is the big one that everybody knows about, at least as it's constituted. It's the public company, and it has two operating businesses, movie theaters, as you said, and hotels. We're in full-service hotels, and it's the hotels. If you're Milwaukee, that it's the Pfister, it's the St. Kate, it's the Hilton. We actually have 17 hotels around the country that we run, and the business has, as the Marcus Corporation has been in many businesses through the years. We just turned 90. We've been in at one point restaurants were the biggest part of our business. We had Big Boys and KFCs and Applebee's and all that kind of stuff. Limited service lodging, which was Budgetel, became Baymont. That then became the biggest part of our business, and then we sold that, and then now theaters are the biggest part of the business, but the hotels are not too. Mm-hmm. Then we also have a private group that my brother runs that owns a real estate business and Verlo mattresses and a bunch of restaurants that you would all know here in Milwaukee. We all know Nesto and Bridgewater and the Edison and a lot of the third ward kind of stuff, Smoke Shack, Blue Bat, fun local restaurants.
Well, very, very diversified. But really a lot of public-facing businesses. Obviously, Milwaukee's most known for its in-person experiences. So that's really where I like to spend a lot of time thinking, is like, how do we get people into an in real life setting? And maybe that's,
I'm with you on that.
Yeah, well, I know. I feel like we're really kindred spirits that way. I remember, when nobody wanted the pandemic to end, you were the one harping, to bring things back. And I thought, oh God, this is who I need to get to be my champion when we want to try to turn the night market back on, because Greg gets it. We need in-person experiences.
Oh, we totally do. It's humans were meant to, in the height of the pandemic, they would have me on these, and more like they would be like these big meetings that weren't taking place in person, and they'd bring people in who were dealing with the pandemic, and I sort of joked that I was the poster child for Schadenfreude, which is pleasure the misery of others, because they would have me on and they'd say, well, if you think your life is bad right now, talk to this guy. We were pretty messed up. I see it again exist. Now, at the end of the day, but I did say, I believe in the importance, and humans are meant to be together. We the years and years of evolution have programmed us to be together, and we're stronger being together. I always go back to this book called Bowling Alone. Mm-hmm. This was written, over 25 years ago, and it was making the observation that we were spending less time together, and that we were losing the bonds of social trust, which it doesn't just mean like I trust you to, with something that's important. It's like more if I'm on the side of the road and I have a flat tire and someone comes to help me, that I trust they're there to help me, not to rob me.
Right.
And so, and countries, they observe the countries that have high degrees of social trust did better on every scale, social, economic, health, everything. And so they were positing that people were spending less time in houses of worship, less time at Rotary, less time at bowling leagues. That's why they called it Bowling Alone.
Right.
And so less time together. And I think, unfortunately, a quarter of a century has only showed that that's accelerated. And people get stuck in their silos in their houses, and you wonder why the world seems to be so messed up right now. Well, we need to be together more. We need to look for more opportunities to be together. This work from home thing, I'm sorry for people that are watching this thinking, I love working from home, that's great, but you're probably sitting at home and losing your mind. So go out and be with people.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it is an evolutionary thing. If you think about like early Homo sapiens living in a cave trying to like defend themselves against a saber-toothed tiger, like they needed to be together in order to survive. And even though our technology has allowed us to be connected in the last 40 years in ways that we never could be without having physical proximity to one another, I think we really do need that for our health, for society. I've been playing with the idea actually that we're in a credibility recession, and it's sort of the like long tail of the last 25 years of social media and the sort of political discord, and people, in the last 6 years, things are open, your theaters are back, you can have people stay at your, go to your restaurants and not have to have a 6-foot, distance or whatever. But there have been some shifts since that I think haven't come back. And I actually be curious to see, what do you think of that? Like, what is the thing that you most notice as a difference in this post-COVID era, given all of your IRL businesses?
Yeah, old people are lazy. I mean, it's the truth. I mean, looking at just the movie demographics, the people who've come back are the Gen Zs, the millennials, the youngest groups are back at the movies in force, want to be out, want to be amongst other people, which has always been the case. It's always been a business for youth. But we had a nice business of people who wanted to come see, more dramas and comedies and stuff that was, aimed at a little bit of an older audience. It wasn't the bulk of the business, but it was a big chunk of it. And that group can't seem to get themselves off the couch. It's really amazing. The inertia it's like, I may as well just stay home tonight. Well, that's not a really, again, it's a good thing occasionally, but, I say, you were talking about technology. I always say technology is very enabling until it is disabling. Mm-hmm. This is great. Historically, maybe we would have been doing this on a conference call, and you wouldn't see the images, and you wouldn't see me smile or see me and say, oh, there's the movie guy, whatever. This adds a dimension to it. That's enabling. It's disabling when you're on a Zoom with the person down the hall, or you could have gotten together and you chose, well, let's just do Zoom because it's convenient, not because you had to. It's like at the office. This is this whole thing. I was always a big return to work person. Like, you just think it's better for you. Well, it is better for us, but I actually think it's better for you, the person working, because you do, you get out and you meet people and you're mentored and whatever, or you're mentoring, and there's so much that goes on beyond just, sitting there where you're processing the job.
And if any part of your job requires creative output, which, that's basically all that we do at Milwaukee, is come up with new fun ideas. It's so hard to do that by yourself. I mean, I would say I was a little hesitant to return to the office post-COVID, mostly because our office was so sad and gray. And it dawned on me, in early 23, like, I feel like our output has really diminished. We need more time together. And if the issue is the office, we should just move offices. And we did. We bought a building in Bayview and turned it into a clubhouse that is the best place for actually coming together and ideating and actually being able to interact with each other. And what's interesting is, in the last year and a half, the people who come here every day are the Gen Z employees of ours. They're the ones that want to be together. And I think it's for exactly what you're saying. Like, they need a network. They want to actually interact with one another. They don't want to be alone. I saw a really funny headline actually last week that said that Gen Z is going to bring the mall back for the same reason. Like, they actually want to have not just like the recommendation from TikTok or Instagram, but to go touch, feel, be, in and around the things they could actually buy, which gave me a lot of excitement, to be honest with you. Like, okay, maybe this in-person experience will be more coveted in spite of the fact that the technology has sort of accelerated in and away from us.
I said, it's great. Look at, at the office. If you said, I have a problem with let's pick today where it's going to be 100, my air conditioner. I need to wait at home for the air conditioning guy to show up, and but I need to do my meetings. That's technology. That's very enabling. That's great. Stay home and take care of what you've got to take care of. But stay home in your pajamas all day and, run over to Starbucks. That's disabling. That's not enabling. So use the technology to be enabling, and let's lever it so that people can. Otherwise, in the old days, it's like, I got to go to work. How am I going to get this done? And let's make it miserable. Or I want to take my kid, and I want my kid to have I want to be able to drive my kid to school, so I want to take my first meeting on. So fine, that's enabling. It's disabling when you just choose not.
Well, yeah, and to your point, we were talking about why people, even 25 years ago, were opting out of those in-person experiences. I think the long-term effect is just sort of the lack of trust. And so the antidote to that is more exposure to one another. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like, when you have more exposure to one another, you actually make eye contact. You see someone for their whole person and not maybe the comments that are on a screen. It's so easy to sort of disembody someone when you're only seeing the text version of them.
Oh, absolutely. And well, I can think of 1,000 things that are wrong. But I think, but first of all, I think that chemically something happens in your brain when you see someone, when you smell somebody, when your senses are activated, your brain does change. I'm certain of that, how you perceive something. So whether it's going to a movie, watching it at home is different than just physically how your brain perceives it is different than if you watch it with other people in a theater. And I think that's really, really very important in what makes going to the movies, different. I always say though, and it's not just that, it's the memories, and it's whether it's the memories of, I spent a bunch of time in high school with my buddies and we all ran over to the theater all the time, that was fun, or, I always say, like right now, and I'll use Toy Story 5, a great movie. I absolutely loved it. I saw it this weekend and it was so good. And you'd think, okay, Toy Story 5, really? Still? Yeah, really excellently made movie. And, but, I said, 20 years from now, I'll take the number 0 or below of kids who say, adults at that point say, I remember my first movie. My parents, they took me into the family room and we turned on the TV and we watched Toy Story 5. No one's going to say that. But there will be kids who say, you know what, I remember my parents took me to my first movie and we saw Toy Story 5 and my mom held my hand and my dad bought me popcorn and I thought that Woody was, that's the memory they'll have. That's you can't ask for more as a parent, you can't ask for more as a kid. It's just different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's exactly right. It's, of course, now with streaming content, you can access whatever it is you want to access. But what you're describing is how that went from a piece of content into an experience. Who did you go with? Was it a first date? You know what I mean? Like, I feel like you remember all of the other little parts around it, even maybe more than the film itself.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. You're absolutely right. Again, enabling to be able to see anything you want anytime. That's great. You want to watch TV. How many times have we used to sit at home and say, there's nothing to watch? Okay, you find something to watch, great. If you're at home and it's the time to be entertained at home, that's great. But when you start using it as a crutch to not leave, which is what a lot of the older crowd is doing, I'll just wait and watch it at home. I can watch that movie at home. It's not a spectacle, which is so stupid. It's not, I'm sorry, it's just not, it doesn't make any sense to say that if it's not a spectacle, I don't want to go see it in a theater, that I don't want to spend a few extra bucks. It's really more, do I want to be out amongst people? And and when you think about your cheapest form of entertainment, you can say, movies are expensive, but, well, compare it to going to a concert, or compare it to going to a baseball game, or a football game, or whatever other thing you could possibly think of doing where you want to be around people. Movies actually are pretty reasonably priced.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to know one thing you think people immediately notice, before a movie starts, from your iconic, kind of talking heads to loyalty, your digital engagement, the things that, you are a Milwaukee icon. I'm curious, how has the pre-show marketing changed in the theater business, maybe besides you becoming the star of the show in years past?
Well, if you got to go back all the way, first of all, yeah, that's I never intended to be the star of the show. That was not where that started. It wasn't like I was thinking. One time I told the story of how I ended up on the screens, and I was doing it with our theater managers, who I'd been doing it now long enough that a lot of them had turned over and probably didn't know the story. And for those of you who think I'm this giant egomaniac that just wants to see myself on the movie screen, I said, okay, anyone in this room, please raise your hand if you like seeing pictures of yourself. of which, of course, no one raised their hand because no one likes seeing pictures of themselves. And I said, well, imagine seeing yourself on 50 to 70 feet of screen when you go to a movie. It is not easy to look at yourself on a movie screen. Trust me on this one. But it became something that was important and part of what we do, and it gives it a local flavor, and it gives a connection to the business that really hard for anybody else to do, because our names are on the theater as opposed to some of our other competitors where it's just a brand name. It's not necessarily a family's name. But the pre-show, I mean, you got to go, if you go back, I mean, originally there was like not much to it. I mean, it was a word jumble, some slides that maybe played off a slide projector for local businesses, the dry cleaner and a local restaurant or two, and then we'd move into the trailers. At showtime, it was trailers, and you'd see probably 15 minutes of trailers, and then the movie started. We put up maybe a thing for get M&Ms and popcorn at the concession stand, to pitch the concession stand, and that was about it. Over time, and actually it was going on in Europe much longer, advertising became a much more important part of what we were doing, and so helping to deal with the cost of running a movie theater, which the economics, if you follow public companies, we're not, it's not the easiest business. But so we started, and then we started with the ads. Now the ads typically ran up until showtime for us, and so that was what we call the pre-show. And we have a vendor that puts those together and goes out and looks for national. But we have, and so you get a lot of ads that run. It's basically an ad show. We've actually begged them to put some more content in there to get people to come and see it. But those ads run up until showtime, and with a little bit of maybe some behind-the-scenes stuff or some comedy. They have added it over time to add a little bit of meat to that bone of advertising that runs up until showtime. And then at showtime we moved to trailers. Now in the recent years we've added a few ads, because by that time most people start to get in their seats, and it's very valuable, and so people wanted to reach the customer. We've tried to keep our pre-show from the showtime to when it goes to about 15 minutes. When it gets to be busier in the summer, we can stretch out a few more minutes, and if I'm on the screen longer, I try to only have it a minute, but like I have one I know it's running, it's 2 minutes right now because it's actually a promotion for a movie for Super 3, but which actually turned out sort of funny. The actual cast of Super Troopers is in the piece with me.
Well, that's cool.
But over time, that has been an interesting change where we've started to do more with talent. I've done some really interesting things with some really interesting people that I never anticipated. And this is all never anticipated. I go back to the story of how I even ended up on the screen, because it was never anticipated. But I did a thing with Kevin Costner for Horizons. I did a thing with the comedian's name from Parks and Rec, the Indian comedian. He was.
Oh yes, snippets. I can't think of him. Yes, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
But we actually made him laugh, which is hard to do. They don't like to break that, and there's some good outtakes. It was like where we were messing around, and I was making him laugh. And I've done I did the thing with Super Troopers guys. I've done William H. Macy. I did a thing with him, which was so cool for the old people in the audience. I did. The one that was the most interesting, and to me the most meaningful, I don't know that it meant much, was I was a big Rob Reiner fan. I was very into the movies. I went to film school, and in the late 80s, early 90s, Rob Reiner made a string of movies that were just incredible. When Harry Met Sally, A Few Good Men, Stand By Me. But his first one was Spinal Tap, and when Spinal Tap 2 came out, the team said, would you like to film something with the guys from Spinal Tap and Rob Reiner? And I'm like,
yes, please.
I went last summer, about a year ago, and I filmed with them. I have all the video. I have like 20 minutes of me just hanging out, and just we were just riffing for 20 minutes, which somehow we pieced into a trailer, and it was amazing. I loved being with them, and we had a lot of fun. I traded an email with Rob Reiner afterwards, and I thought, well, maybe I'll see this guy again. And then
I know, it's sad.
It was so sad, but it was an incredibly interesting experience to do it. And so I've had lots of really fun things. But again, I never planned it. I didn't plan this. The way it all started was I was one of the co-chairs of the United Way campaign for Milwaukee. 2012, so this is now 14 years ago, and I was coming in every day, and Ann Stadler was the marketing person there, or not every day, I was coming in once a week, and she would, and I'd get the update on what's going on with the campaign, and you know me, I like to mess around and joke around and have a good time, and Ann said, have you ever thought about going on the screen and doing, you give us a PSA, public service announcement when the campaign's going on, this is the fall, would you go on the screen and make the appeal yourself? I'm like, I've never thought of it. Let me think about it. And I came back to him and said, well, if I could welcome people, and I'd always sort of wondered, people don't come to the movies for me. They're not
of course not, but I don't think you hurt the experience.
Well, that was my point, yeah, that's, they don't come for me, they don't come for Marcus Theaters, they're coming for Superman, they're coming for Toy Story, they're coming for the movie that's playing. That's what's really drawing the people in. But, if I could welcome them and make them laugh or have a little, smile, or at least laugh at me, whatever it would be, I think that's probably a good thing. So I said, if I could do that, I'll make the pitch. And she's like, you make the pitch, you can do whatever you want. And I said, okay. And so I got on, and I started, like the first year I did it, it was on for 3 months, and my parents' friends would see me, and they'd say, oh, Greg, you look so good on the screen. I'm like, you're old and blind, but okay. And then I just noticed more and more people were starting to notice me, and people that I thought it'd be important to have this feeling of being local, especially in markets where they don't know us at all and not know who I was. And then even our employees, this is the most interesting thing. I noticed our employees started knowing who I was, and they wanted to meet me. In the old days, they would never know who. I mean, they in Milwaukee and the few theaters I would get to, but as I start getting further out into the system, they wouldn't know who I was, and then maybe seeing a picture of me or a poster. But seeing me on the screen, they're seeing me all the time, completely changed sort of how they relate to me, which in a good way. Mm-hmm. And so I just said, okay, well, I don't know that I'm helping the business, but I don't think I'm hurting it.
No,
and I think there's going to be a lot of benefits. So
I think that there are plenty of benefits in that way. I'm curious, actually, kind of going back to our an original reflection on COVID. Your organization's been around for 90 years, which is incredible. I can't believe some days that Milwaukee is 17 years old. To think about getting to 90 seems impossibly hard. But you have led through some really incredibly disruptive moments in the entertainment industry. I'm curious, what are some of the biggest lessons you've learned about resilience or adaptation over time?
One is sort of an affirmation of the way we operate our businesses, which is, if I would tell you, the one thing that got us through it was not having too much leverage. If you were going to over-leverage, but not putting too much leverage on the business. To get through it, we were losing $10 to $15 million a month in cash going out the door.
Yeah.
Just trying to keep up with the cost of doing. We were trying to keep. We had to let so many people go. But I'll never forget the funniest. It was the craziest thing. The PPP money came out. There was, I think, a story. Marcus took the PPP money. For us, there were two ways that worked with PPP. If you could be open for business and take PPP money, and then you're basically defraying the cost of your labor. You're getting your people, you're basically getting your work for free, and you're still having an output, right? In our case, we were closed. And so for us to pay our employees, we weren't getting any benefit from paying our employees other than wanting people to not have to go on unemployment and to not feel that it was a nightmare trying to get on unemployment and all the challenges, and we were just trying to help our employees out. And it had said we had zero benefit from PPP. It just was, and yet, Marcus took PPP. It was...
Everyone did, though. We did too. That's not that big of a deal. I don't feel like that's.
Well, but there was a story in the paper about it. There were people who were taking it and they're giving it. Some were giving it back, and it was because they were. It was like, what do you need it for? You're actually. You have revenue. You have no expenses now. What do you need PPP for? For some people, for us, it was didn't help us, but. We were trying to take care of our employees. We kept a bunch of people on that we want, that we kept managers on as long as we could keep them on. We kept our senior leadership on. We had the cut staff. It was an awful, awful time. But having that, also having financial flexibility was helpful. Having great people around me. I had my board is fantastic. They were important advisors as we worked through it. Having our senior leadership team, they all were, working at a discount and trying to figure out how to get it done and how to keep us in business. It was a tough time, but it was incredible to see everybody come together. So be surrounded by great people and don't have too much leverage, and that help you when you need it.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense to me.
What's one thing about the future of entertainment and audience behavior that you think people are still underestimating in this moment?
Well, I think where I was talking about before, I think that the older crowd is underestimating the importance of getting out and how much better of an experience it is and how different it is. And not every once in a while you'll hear someone say, "Oh, I've been to the movies in Seoul and I went. It was great." I'm like, "Okay, well, keep going."
Welcome to the party. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're very deeply involved in Milwaukee leadership and a variety of different nonprofits. I'm curious, how has Milwaukee shaped your perspective as a business leader?
I don't know. I would say that, it's being a part of a smaller community. Maybe, we're not so small that we're a small town. I mean, people might say we're a small town, but it's not really a small town. It's a big city, and yet it's a pretty tight-knit community. Everybody knows one another, and the importance of taking care of one another, and sort of maybe the ethos of a family business applies to the ethos of a city where you're all in it together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you can't really hide that way, right? Like, you have to take care of each other. Especially
everybody. Yeah, it's funny. Someone will say, "Oh, I give anonymously." I'm like, in this town, good luck. Maybe, but
I was thinking
gave anonymously.
I was at a local arts nonprofit last week, and they have the big donor board up, and the top donor is listed as anonymous. And I always think when I see that, like, you gave anonymously, why do you have to have your name up there as anonymous? Just have it be off the board. You know what I mean?
But most people probably not. A lot of people probably know who it is. Mm-hmm. And on top of that, there's an important. The other side of that is, leaders signal. And so when somebody gives, when Northwestern Mutual gives to somebody, everybody's paying attention. Who are they giving to? When we give to somebody, when a leader is out in front of something, they're saying this is important, and others then follow. And if they do it anonymously, they're missing that opportunity to signal that this is important.
Yeah. Well, I have a question for you, but I'm going to answer from my perspective first. What role do you think companies like Marcus play in shaping our cultural and social life in the city? And I'll give you an example of how Marcus shaped Milwaukee. So back in 2014, when we were on the West Wisconsin Avenue Task Force and asked to sort of host a fun party while all of the grown-ups in the room were trying to develop that corridor of downtown, we asked you if we could host a party right in front of the Hilton. And I think you guys even helped us by extension of premise so we could actually serve beer. But that, I would say, completely transformed some of the larger narratives about West Wisconsin Avenue and transformed the way that Milwaukee operated for a decade after that. Well, that was still under our management. And so from my perspective, I don't know if you understood at that time how stimulating that was from a cultural or social perspective, but I'd love to know, you have multiple businesses you have to run, and you're publicly traded, and you have a board, and you have lots of obligations. But my perception of you as a leader is that you understand you have a role to play in our culture here. And so I'm curious your reflections on that, being the leader of Marcus Corporation.
Sure. Look at, and I make this speech to our people all the time. You have to give back. You have to make sure that our community is strong. That's really important, especially for two reasons. Well, one is, I think this is probably the most important reason, and that is, if you have the capability, you have the responsibility. That's simple. You have to. I do believe that you have to. If you've been given so much, you have to help take care of others, and that's just simply, to me, my mom said, you can't be a taker of the world. That's just the right thing to do. But in addition to it being the right thing to do, for our businesses, they're not movable. The Pfister isn't moving anywhere. The Hilton on West Wisconsin Avenue, if that doesn't, and so much good has happened from that work we did, right? From the mall getting redone to the Symphony Hall, to all the things that have happened to the redo of the convention center. So much good stuff has happened along with that side, that corridor. But if that corridor languishes, the Hilton languishes, and we can't move it. Can't move the Pfister. Can't move our movie theaters. We have to have a strong community where people want to live and work and play and be. And so, you have to, for us, we have no choice but to do that because it's good for the health of our business. But more importantly, again, do it because it's the right thing, and then we try to be, good community citizens because it's good for our businesses. And we do have these businesses that lend themselves to helping, to being a part of the, culture. It's like life events happen at the Pfister or the St. Kate or the Hilton. You get I got married. At the Pfister. My dad got married at the Pfister. How many people get married at our places, or have important meetings, or have things that are going on, or think how much money we raise at the Pfister for charities for these galas that we have. And I've asked, no one's ever done a study, how much more money do you make as a charity being at the Pfister? I mean, it's got to be measurable, because I think that you can charge the most, you can put the most people in. It puts a patina on it. It's really important. So we're able to. That's an important thing where you do right and do good at the same time. It's that old mantra. The St. Kate. I mean, think about the St. Kate. I mean, so the Pfister is like, okay, it's a Grand Dame hotel. It's what people see when they come to town. When you're trying to get someone to move here, and they got to stay somewhere, and you really think it's an important person, you put them up in one of our hotels. And the St. Kate has really come along to be another important contributor to that. Not only from the standpoint of trying to impress people that come here, the statement that we make with the art that we've put into it. We've had lots of different artists making lots of different statements, and I'm okay with that. I want people to have a discussion and disagree. That's okay too, or maybe not like something they see. In fact, the way we designed it was, we said, look, in the guest rooms, it has to just be sort of, I don't want to use the word decorative, but not controversial. Some would say, well, the only reason to make art is to make a statement and to be controversial, but sometimes you make art for the beauty of it. And in our guest rooms, because you don't have a choice. Once you're in the guest room, you really can't leave. You could leave. You have to check out of the hotel. I mean, you can't. And on the guest rooms have all local Wisconsin-based artists, from whether it's the print company that did the lampshades, to the photos that are on the walls, to the bed skirts that were designed by a local artist, to the tile that's in the bathrooms that was done by a local artist. Those were all local artists. But once you get beyond the guest rooms, I'm okay with art being controversial, and I don't want to poke people in the eye, and I don't want to be obnoxious about it. But if it doesn't have to become, you can walk away from it if you don't like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it should evoke something.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, I really appreciate your stewardship. I don't know that you have. I hear you that your businesses are not movable, and that there's an economic development benefit to you having a vibrant community around it. But I do tend to read you as a cultural leader in addition to a business one. And so I thank you for your stewardship of both. My last question for you is, for young entrepreneurs or future business leaders, what's some advice you would give to someone leading a legacy company, or hoping that one day the company they've started will be a legacy business like Marcus Corporation?
Well, I think it's a few things. One we talked about is, don't be over levered. Leave yourself flexibility. If we're talking about business, we talk about people are your most important asset, and that's what I was talking about before. The way we phrase it is, people are our most important asset. We're in a service business, that makes it even more so. But I don't care what business you're in. The people that help us get through that pandemic are our most important assets. And as my dad likes to say, it's tough to soar with the eagles if you're stuck on the ground with the turkeys. So make sure that you're surrounded by people who are maybe smarter than you. It would be really helpful to have people who are smarter than you around you, because that will make you better. I always tell people, like, don't be worried about, some people say, well, if I hire someone really smart, they'll take my job. I'm like, I don't think that's ever happened here. No one's going to say, wow, Bill hired this great guy and he's out now. Bill's out. We took the great guy. No, it's more like, well, Bill was smart enough to hire that great guy, and now we've got both Bill and the great guy. So that's fantastic. There's the old saying: you are judged by the people you are surrounded by, the company you keep. And I always say, if you surround yourself with great people, you will be judged greatly. If you surround yourself with bad people, you will also be judged, unfortunately. So I sort of think those are the most important. Do and be a part of your community, and give back, and engage with people, and be patient. You know, things are cyclical. Things come and go. They come and go in cycles, and there'll be times when it's really hard and times when it's really good. And just try to enjoy the good when it's there, and know the good will be back when it's hard.
That's great. That's really great. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Greg. Thanks for coming on Making New Possible.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.